Miss Anderson here from Mount Olympus, here to guide you through your reading of the Odyssey. And by the way, isn't this fantastic? Gareth Hines, the Odyssey in graphic novel format. I hope you're enjoying it, because I am. All right, we are going to recap. Oh, my toga. We are going to recap book 5 of the Odyssey. So book 5 sees Calypso, and she's a beautiful goddess, and she has entrapped Odysseus for 7 whole years. That's a lot of time. And Odysseus is crying on the beach because he misses his home and his wife. And all of a sudden, Hermes comes down, the messenger god, and he says, Calypso, you gotta let that man go. Zeus told me to tell you that. And remember, Zeus is like kind of the king of all gods here. And who told Zeus to tell Hermes, to tell Calypso to let him go? Well, Athena did. And Athena is the daughter of Zeus, and Athena gives aid to Odysseus. Now remember, Odysseus is very crafty, he's cunning, he's witty, he's smart, he's very intelligent, we know that. And so it makes sense for Athena, the god of wisdom, to be his kind of patron god, or goddess, if you will. All right, so that is what's happening. Calypso gets upset, obviously. She tries to persuade Odysseus to stay. She offers him immortality. She tells him that his wife is probably ugly by now, right? Age and all that. Oh, and Odysseus is like, oh, I know you're beautiful. You're going to be beautiful forever, but I got to go home. And so he and she build a raft and he goes off to sea. Okay, so that is where we left off on book 5. Now, coming into book 6 through 8, essentially, Odysseus arrives at an island, Scheria, and this is the home of the Phoenicians, okay? And he kind of washes up to shore after some storms, if you will. And what happens is Athena disguises him to look beautiful, because after that whole thing, he probably does not look great, right? And so Athena, gives a dream to the princess of this island. And the dream is that she is going down to wash her clothes in these pools, these washing pools. And so, of course, she wakes up and she's like, I've got to wash my clothes. So she takes her attendants down to the washing pools. And who does she find there? You guessed it, Odysseus. And Odysseus, humble man that he is, he's like, oh no, you can't see me like this. And she's like, oh, hello. I'm going to bring you to my father and my mother. And remember, the whole Greek thing is about hospitality. Hospitality. So when you see a stranger, you bring them into your home, you feed them, you clothe them, you give them what they need. All right. Because you never know if that stranger is secretly a god in disguise. Okay. So the princess takes Odysseus to her father's palace, King Alcinous. Okay. And so Odysseus is led there. He tells the princess, hey, I'm going to go in by myself. He is then led by Athena, disguised as a little girl. She likes to disguise herself a lot. And he finally meets King Alcinous. They throw a feast in his honor. They eventually decide to, King Alcinous decides to give Odysseus, he doesn't know who he is. He does not know that this is the legendary Odysseus, okay? He just thinks he's a stranger, looks a little different, okay? And so they throw this feast, they get a boat ready, they get men ready, right? And then they have these games, okay? And these games, the athletic games, Odysseus is like, I'm tired. I'm not going to go in on these games. But they goad him and they tease him until he's like, okay, I'll throw one discus, okay? And if you don't know what a discus is, it's like a round, kind of looks like a frisbee, but it would have been very heavy. And so men would have thrown these as far as they can throw them. And today we still have the discus in track and field, all right? And in the Olympic Games. Pretty cool. And so Odysseus throws it, and he throws it farther than everybody else. And so King Alcinous is looking at this guy, and he's like, wait a minute. I feel like I know this guy. I feel like this guy has a bigger story here. And King Alcinous becomes kind of suspecting of Odysseus. And there's a bard there. A bard is a traveling storyteller, essentially. And the storyteller, the bard, begins to sing of Odysseus and Achilles and these famous war icons from Troy. And Odysseus hears this song and he begins crying. And King Alcinous looks at him and he's like, wait a minute, I feel like I know who this is. I feel like I know. And all of a sudden Odysseus is like, all right, fine. Let me tell you the story. Okay. And so this begins what's called a frame narrative. All right. Frame narrative. A frame narrative is a story within a story. All right. We see this in places like Titanic, okay, where at the beginning of the story, they're in the submarine. They're looking at the Titanic underwater. They find this diamond, a picture of a girl with a diamond necklace on, and they're like, we got to find this girl. They find the girl. She's an old woman by now. And all of a sudden, this old woman starts telling the story of way back when. And so that's a story within a story. All right. Same thing with Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump is sitting on a booth, sitting on a park bench, and people come and they're waiting for the bus, and he's telling them the story of his life. All right. So that's a story within a story. This is called a frame narrative. So the outside of the frame is like the outer story, and inside the frame is the inner story. All right. And some stories have like a frame within a frame within a frame. That's not this kind of story. You get it. All right. So at this point, Odysseus begins telling the story. Now remember, our story of the Odyssey begins in medias res, all right, which is Latin for in the midst of things, in the middle of things. And so we got thrown into the Calypso stuff and we're like, what? What happened? What happened to get him to the Calypso island? We have no idea. Well, we're about to find out, okay? And so in your timeline, in your guide, notes, you're going to want to take note of when things are happening in the timeline, because Calypso is later. Odysseus, is about to tell King Alcinous about what happened right after Troy. Okay, that's important. So he's going to launch into the story about here's what happened right after we left Troy. And I don't want to give away too many details, but basically he's going to sail away from Troy. They're going to find some cannibals. It's not pretty. He's going to lose some guys to that cannibal massacre. Okay, yikes. Oh, not good. They're called the Cicones. Not good, not good. And then they're going to sail to what's called the Lotus Eater Island. Okay, now these people on this island, do you know what they do all day? They eat what's called the lotus fruit. Okay, and the lotus fruit makes you forget about home. You don't want to do anything except for eat that fruit. Sounds magical. I don't know. And so he has to drag his men back to the ship because they're like, I just want to eat the fruit. I don't want to go home. And so he's like, you're going home. And so they all get back in the ship and then they sail to what's called the island of the Cyclops. Cyclops. Okay. Big one eye. They're gorgeous. Now, the Cyclops are a little bit of a different brood. Now, remember, the whole Greek thing, their culture is centered around community and hospitality. Everybody helps out one another, right? And so I am going to read a little bit of book 9 here, where it describes the Cyclops. So check this out. It says, in the next land we found were Cyclops, giants, louts. Ooh, good word. Without a law to bless them. Remember, the Greeks are pretty much the ones that came up with the idea of democracy and republics and the idea of representation and law to make sure that everybody is organized. So to encounter a people that have no laws is like, whoa, what are these people about? Listen to this. In ignorance, leaving the fruitage of the earth in mystery to the immortal gods, they neither plow nor sow by hand. They neither plow nor sow by hand, nor till the ground, though grain grows untended, and wine grapes in clusters ripen in heaven's rain. Ooh, okay, so let me get this straight. They don't plow. They don't grab the grapes. All right. Everything grows, but they don't want any of it. Now, to the Greeks, that would have been crazy because the Greeks, they grow things and they get grapes and they eat the grapes and they have all of this produce. But the Cyclops don't want any of that. And so to the Greeks, they're looking at the Cyclops like they're aliens. Why would they just leave these things to the ground? These things that the gods have given them. All right. One last thing here about the Cyclops. It says, Cyclops have no muster and no meeting, no consultation or old tribal ways. So basically they have no history and they have no meeting. They don't meet with each other. It says, but each one dwells in his own mountain cave, dealing out rough justice to wife and child, indifferent to what the others do. Each one dwells in their own mountain cave, indifferent to what others do. So basically the Cyclops are a little bit more isolated, and so they don't meet together. They don't really have a community. They don't show hospitality. They aren't a communal people. They're just kind of off to the side, and they don't really want to meet with other Cyclopses. They don't want to have the festivals. They don't want to have the Olympic Games. They don't want to be with each other. They just want to stay in their own little mountain caves and tend to their sheep. They like sheep. That's what they do. So to the Greeks, the Cyclopses are just horrible. They're like cavemen to the Greeks. So that is what's happening in book 9. I'm not going to give any more details, but imagine the Greeks encountering these Cyclopses. What is going to happen? Make a prediction. We'll see if your prediction is correct. All right, enjoy book 9, and then I'll meet you again when we enter book 10. It's going to be about a witch. Ooh.